Good afternoon, Texans. I'm Todd Coley, and this is the Texan Sports Minute. The NCAA tournament wrapped up on Monday night, and the Yukon Huskies were the last team left standing, as well as the NBA regular season dwindling down, and of course campus coverage. Today on the show we have Texans getting swept in Portales, the Texans splitting the series with Cameron, March Madness truly living up to its name, the Mavs over the Jazz in Utah, Rangers bounce back against the Red Sox at Fenway. For campus news, Tarleton Sports reports a rough weekend for the Texan baseball team as they went to Portales to battle the Eastern New Mexico and lost all 3 games. In the first game, the Texans found themselves down 2-0 by the 3rd inning, but were able to tie it up. In the bottom of the 7th, the Greyhounds added another run that Tarleton was also able to match, tying the score at 3. Eastern New Mexico was able to score a walk-off double, though, beating the Texans 4-3. The next day was more of the same for the Texans as they battled Eastern New Mexico throughout the doubleheader and continued with close games. In their first game, the Texans were up 2-0 before giving up 3 runs in the 6th, and that 3-2 score would stick as the final. In Game 2, the Texans trailed 4-0 before adding 2 runs of their own in the 6th, but the offensive output wasn't enough, and the Greyhounds won 4-2. The Texans stopped in Arlington for a quick game with Arlington Baptist, which they won 5-4. This puts the Texans at 18-18 on the season, and they sit 5th in conference with a conference record of 8-13. The Texans come home for a 3-game series with Angelo State starting this Friday afternoon at 3 p.m. A doubleheader is scheduled for Saturday starting at 1 p.m. The Texans played doubleheaders last Friday and Saturday against Cameron, and the team split both days. Game 1 saw the Texans down 7-1 before the bottom of the 3rd, where they were able to put in 3 runs of their own. The Texans scored another 3 in the 4th to tie the game, but were unable to get any more offense and gave up 3 late runs in the 8th inning on a bases-loaded single. Game 2 saw yet another gem of a pitching performance from Brenna Hennon as she owned the Aggie hitters, holding them to just 6 hits with 6 strikeouts and 0 earned runs. The Texans got off 2 runs in the 4th and another insurance run in the 6th, and that was plenty to piggyback off the pitching performance from Hennon. Game 1 of the second day's doubleheader was an offensive battle as the Texans were able to finish on top 7-6. The 6th inning was what sealed the deal for the Texans when they poured on 3 runs. The game was a blast from the start as Tarleton was able to get a run early which Cameron matched, and the game was tied until the 4th. The Texans tacked on 3 and then saw Cameron come back with 5 of their own in the 6th, but it wouldn't hold once the Texans got to bat. They held Cameron scoreless in the 7th, and that was the game. The final game of the weekend had Tarleton losing by a large margin to Cameron with a final score of 11-3. The Aggies scored all of their 11 runs in the first 3 innings, and by the 3rd, when Tarleton was able to get their 3 runs, it was way too late. The Texans now sit at 19-23 and 9-11 in conference. In national news, the AP is reporting the NCAA tournament has wrapped up with its first ever 7 seed, capping off a crazy bracket. It was the perfect ending to a tourney that saw so many upsets. For more on the championship game, we move to video from the AP.
They're cheering in Connecticut after Yukon wins the NCAA men's basketball championship. It was a win that almost no one saw coming as Yukon topped Kentucky 60-54. Yukon got off to a quick start and never fell behind. The win comes after Yukon was banned from March Madness for a year because of grade problems. Coach Kevin Ollie said the Huskies came back ready to fight.
I keep telling you, it started 18 months ago when they kept believing and they stayed loyal to the program. And, you know, it's just a wonderful feeling to hold that trophy up.
Shabazz Napier led the way with 22 points, 6 rebounds, and 3 assists, and was named Most Outstanding Player of the Final 4. Napier spoke about the 1-year ban and said it gave this year's team a sense of purpose.
We hungry, and when you stop, you know, when you prevent us from trying to go to the postseason, you know, and it wasn't our fault. We worked since that day on.
Free throws made a big difference in the game. Connecticut was 10 for 10. Kentucky shot 13 for 24. Diane Kepley, The Associated Press.
With only 3 games remaining, the Mavs have been able to play somewhat consistent basketball down the stretch. The Mavs won 4 straight while on their West Coast swing and capped it off last night with a trip to Utah. The Mavs cruised against the Jazz by a final score of 95-83, but it was also a historic night for Dirk Nowitzki. The big German had 21 points in the game and surpassed Oscar Robertson for 10th all-time in NBA scoring history. The Mavs shot 56% from the field and had 6 double-digit scores. Nowitzki shot a sizzling 9 for 11 and now sits with 26,714 career points. The Jazz had the Mavs beat on rebounds, points in the paint, and second-chance points, but the Mavs' hot shooting performance was too much. The Mavs started the game with a ridiculous 17 of 18 shooting effort for the first quarter and finished the first half shooting 70.3%, which was enough for Dallas to stay comfortably ahead. The Jazz had a small run in the third, but then Dirk scored on 4 straight possessions to put the Mavs up 70-55. That was pretty much the dagger for the Jazz. The Mavs now host San Antonio tomorrow night and will then host Phoenix on Saturday night for the final home game of the season. The Mavs wrap up the regular season next Wednesday against Memphis. The last 2 games against Phoenix and Memphis could likely decide the remaining seeds in the playoffs, since the Mavs, Grizzlies, and Suns are all bunched together from the 7 to 9 seeds. The Rangers put a series opening loss to the Red Sox behind them last night when they won 10-7 in Boston. The Red Sox were able to get a pretty impressive 14 hits, but were hitting into 5 double plays when they had men on base, stopping their momentum. The Rangers took an 8-0 lead by the 4th inning, and the Sox couldn't recover. Boston did try to make the game interesting with some late runs, but the Rangers' early offense proved to be insurmountable. Adrian Beltre left the game in the 6th inning with tightness in his left thigh. Elvis Andrus and Alex Rios have now successfully hit in all 8 Rangers games this season. The Rangers wrap up their series in Boston this afternoon at 3:05 before coming home for a 10-game stand against Houston, Seattle, and the White Sox. Well, that wraps up sports for this week. Make sure to get out there on Friday and support the Texans as they host Angelo State this weekend. Follow me on Twitter at Texan News Sports. And as always, thanks to Katie Gibbs, super producer, for producing the show and making the magic happen. Have a great week, Texans.